everyone, this is Raj Vashisht. I am representing Adriana Services. I am the CEO of my company and welcome to our podcast, Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. Today, our topic is how to treat your neighbor. And as usual, my great colleague and guest, the Guru Coach Betska, and the corporate strategist and advisor, Marion Weiler. Let's start with Marion and Betska. You please start, Marion or Betska, whatever.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Well, it's such a great topic, how to treat your neighbor. Wow. So let's define who our neighbor is, first of all, right? So it could be in our homes, our neighbors, immediate neighbors. It could be in the community, it could be anywhere. But in the workplace, it could be if we have an open concept office, it could be the person in the cubicle next door to us. It could also be colleagues in other departments. It could be our boss. Who is our neighbor? Basically, anyone, I believe our neighbor is anyone that we associate with. Yeah. So the first thought that comes to my mind about how to treat our neighbor is, how do I like to be treated by our neighbors? So it's the same going the other way. So the first thing is, I'd like to be treated with respect. And I think that's an important first element to discuss, to not judge our neighbors, accept whatever is going on in their lives and accept their points of view. I mean, gosh, in the last 3 years, there have been so many different ideas about the pandemic and about how to, wear masks or how to function. Should I work at home or work in the office? And I think stepping back and just accepting how people think is a very good start on how to treat our neighbor, because it opens up channels of communication. If we judge them on, oh, you're stupid, or why do you say that, or why do you wear this, or whatever, then we're putting up barriers to communication. Yeah. And so respect, number one. Number two, don't judge our neighbors. And then the other one that I really, really love is helpfulness, offering support. If you see your neighbor, broke their leg, and they're hobbling around on crutches, or offer to help them go and get their groceries or do their gardening for them. Or if it's in the office, say, hey, it's coffee break, can I go and get you a coffee? Or these are simple things, but sometimes we forget how important it is to be loving and kind to our neighbors. Marion, what do you think?
So first of all, this topic, I just want to bring it in context here, because we are talking about leadership and how we can show up as leaders in our lives. And sometimes we think most of our lives are in the working environment, and leadership has a very corporate touch to it. But we can be a leader in our communities. We can be a leader with our family. We can be a leader with our friends, anywhere that we come, and not just simply people we associate with, but anybody we come in contact with. And so being that leader and having that, to your point, Betska, that support, I think remembering where the whole idea of neighbor relationships comes from. It's like from really back in the day when we were relying on our neighbors, because we might have, or our earlier generations didn't have the transportation. They didn't have the means to go other places. So you were heavily relying on your neighbors, like in a very literal sense, right? Like where you are living, the people in your villages, or the people in the places that you lived. And so you were depending on each other. And so that kind of brings up that support and that help, and that I rely on you, you rely on me type of environment. And that has something very beautiful about it, in a way, because you were never alone. You knew, and this old saying that goes, you raise a family with a village. right? Or the village kind of chimes in. And in today's world, oftentimes in many parts of the world, or Western world particularly, we very much rely on ourselves. And I think sometimes that can bring feelings of loneliness. It can bring feelings of disconnection when really we are, in some sense, all connected. And it is something that is really embedded into us, that we are more of a community and have more of a connection. And with that comes that support.
You know, some people think that, you know, if we treat our neighbors too well, then that could backfire, or maybe the neighbors don't want us to be helpful. You know, because there's a fine line there. We have to kind of check and see, well, you know, like I love to take our neighbor's dog for a walk. I love that dog, right? So, and they love it that I take their dog for a walk. Yeah. I haven't done it for a while, but in the springtime, I was out there a lot. Besides, we live in the forest and he protects me from the bears and the cougars, and he's only this big, but cute little pup. And so that's an interesting thing. When you were talking, I thought, wow, Marion, you grew up in a small village, right, where your parents are now, and so everybody knows everybody, and so you know, you have to look at, well, how far is too far in terms of being helpful or support, or so we kind of have to know. Did I ever tell you that story about my grandmother? When years ago on the prairies of Canada, I was just a youngster, but there was all these people on a shared phone line, right? And if your phone number was this, the phone rang twice, so you knew you had to pick it up. If it rang 3 times, then it was your neighbor. If it rang 4 times, it's another person. My grandmother used to pick up the phone all the time and listen to everybody's conversations. That was so funny. Oh my God. That's being too nosy. That's not being very helpful.
Yeah.
But
I think that fine line, in my opinion, is, you know, when we are being helpful and offering to help is one thing, and intruding on somebody else's space is another.
yeah.
And I think that's the line that needs to be drawn. We can be helpful and we can be offering our service. And in fact, I believe being of service is one of the biggest skills of leadership. Coming in with this feeling of how can I provide value? How can I be of service to others? Because it doesn't only help others, but it makes you yourself feel better. But when we get confused with, I need to do this for that person or that person without them actually even wanting that, I think that's where the line gets crossed. And so, and that's a different topic that I think sometimes we have to be careful about. And that's, you know, at times I've seen where neighbors don't have a good relationship because they turn to be nosy, or they feel like they're being judged, or they feel like they have to justify whatever they're doing. Everybody still has their own life, and I think we have to respect that.
And you know, the other, when we take this into the corporate world, I have seen it work both ways, you know. Like if we see a colleague who is working on a project and they're struggling because they don't know how to do something, well, I think it's very important that we ask that person if they would like our help and offer some idea. You know, if they want the help, then we offer them some ideas. But too often than not, we see people not wanting to support each other in the workplace because they're afraid that Joe is going to get the next promotion. You know what I mean? So
Well, yeah, because you have competition, and it's again, it's based on other values, right? Where in many cases, that's exactly what happens, that one is outraising another, and then the other is left with no job or bad evaluation, or so that people are very protective, which goes back to leadership. And as the leader of that group, hopefully you have strategies, or if you don't have them, get help getting strategies on how can you get your team to work well together so everybody can be at their best, and you can move the department or the company or organization forward.
So, you know, maybe one way to summarize how to treat your neighbor, whether it's at home or at work, is to begin building trust with these folks. Doing little things to get them to trust you so that when they are in need of something, they will come and ask. Isn't that important? Raj, what do you think?
From my point of view, uh, if we are spreading positivity and helping and giving so much care, love in our neighborhood, in our corporate world. So, in my point of view, I have seen sometimes we face hurdle and problem also, but after the once we do long journey, so the good work always revert back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think we should always help, support, and cooperate with people. And discipline is very important. Discipline and strictness sometimes.
Mm, mm. Well, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys. As
Thank you.
always, just great.
Maybach music.